Listen, today we're bringing you an emergency flank. I'm joined by my friend, my duo, my companion, a staple to the Call of Duty scene. Give it up for Benji Nassim. Nassim. How you doing? How you doing, Benny boy? How you feeling, bro?
I'm doing good, Tom. You know what? It's always a busy week over here in Columbus, but the weekend is here. I'm off the clock. I'm excited to hang out this weekend with my squad of friends and vibe with you. Excited to get this show up. We've got a special guest. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we got a special guest today. He goes by the name of Alex Rubens. Ladies and gentlemen, getting into it a little bit with Crimsix on the timeline yesterday. Alex, what's going on? If you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do around here.
Yeah, absolutely. Accidentally getting into it. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
My name's Alex. I GM the Gorillas as a team, and then I run basically the entire esports organization for Cronky Sports and Entertainment. So we have the Gladiators, hopefully some new teams in other games.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, Alex, thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking the time to come and speak with everybody. You know, it takes a lot of balls to come up here and speak and, you know, talk to everybody. So we appreciate you coming on. You know, you're an absolute... Ben, what the fuck is so funny, Ben?
Just the way you said that was funny.
Oh, okay. Well, you also got Crimsix, who might be joining us in 15 to 20 minutes. He told me he's in the middle of a Valorant game. So as of right now, he's not going to be joining us, but he will be joining us in 15 to 20. For those of you who don't know, today's stream, you know, we have HelloFresh that's going to be sponsoring today's stream. So if you guys haven't already, make sure to put command HelloFresh in the chat. Make sure to use code Zoomaa14 to get up to 14 free meals across your first 5 HelloFresh boxes, including free shipping on your first box at HelloFresh.com. Make sure to go check it out. Shout out to HelloFresh. Ben, I heard you used HelloFresh. And you love it.
No, I don't use HelloFresh.
Why not? Why not? Go use Zoomaa14. Go use the code.
Off, I got to tip you. That was actually for the first time you've ever done a read on this show. That was actually really good.
Thank you.
And second, I currently use Blue Apron, but I'm starting to get sick of Blue Apron. So HelloFresh, let's talk.
Listen, HelloFresh every day of the week, baby. That's what we do. Use code Zoomaa14. I actually use HelloFresh a lot before. Obviously, we're working with them today.
Yeah.
But obviously, just a lot of variety. It's super easy to use, super simple. You know, you could customize everything to your liking. And you can make meals within 20 to 30 minutes, and everything's super fresh and super easy. So shout out to HelloFresh for showing love, and make sure to use command HelloFresh in the chat if you guys want to check it out. And then we also got another guest joining us today. He goes by the name of Zinni, a.k.a. Fat Tony. Give it up for the one and only Methodz.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Methodz.
it is I, the flank guest of the year, making his return to the flank. I've been absent the past few, but tonight called for a special appearance. So, ZooMAFIA, how we doing? Flank listeners, watchers around the world, what's going on? HelloFresh, let me tell you, you're not paying me to say anything, but I've used your product.
Great product.
And it's a prime product.
It is prime product.
I mean, it is truly unbiased, unpaid. Good work.
No, it is. It is good work. That's why I was honestly, when they wanted to work with us, I was excited because of course we used it as well. We actually used them. Me and Mitch, Michaela, my girlfriend, we did some cooking streams like a couple months ago, and we used HelloFresh on the stream. And this is before any of this was even happening. So shout out to them again. Tony, thank you for joining us. But
of course,
I think we should get right into it. Obviously, yesterday there was, I guess you could say, drama on the timeline. Crimsix was speaking a little bit, going kind of rogue, I guess. We're going to tune into this video that the Flank tweeted yesterday, and then we're going to get into the conversation. So we're going to switch over to the screens, and let's tune in and see what Crimsix had to say.
This probably doesn't make sense. A lot of sense. Until I'll say this. When you have 1/3 of the league paying the absolute minimums on salaries, that is a huge fucking problem. That is a fucking joke. That is a joke. Oh, you want fucking 20 grand more than the minimum? Nope. Get the fuck out. Go get an AM. Like, and I'm sorry, and I probably will I'll definitely get fined for this. I'll definitely get a call from Spencer. But like, how the fuck is that? How is that allowed? I'm being dead ass serious. Like, it makes me sick. It's like literally like, oh, you don't want to take the absolute dog shit minimum?
Okay, well then there you go. You had it from Crimsix. There's a few other things said, but I think initially I just want to hop into it there. Ben, I know you have a lot of questions that you want to ask, but Alex, what were your initial thoughts when you saw that video?
I don't know. From my perspective, we can get into it eventually, but I actually understand where he's coming from and agree with a lot of what he was saying. And I think trying to frame it better is how you accomplish things. And so, like, if you think about it, he wants to protect certain players, players who might be underpaid by orgs that don't want to do that. That doesn't really help them by lumping in a bunch of teams who then feel like, oh, well, if everything that I'm putting into this league isn't really seen by fans, then they're not going to, it's not worth it to pay them more. Essentially, some teams might think that way. So I just feel like if it's actually one team, just say it's one team. Don't say that it's four, because eventually you get to a point where it's just not true. So it just hurts the league even more.
Mm-hmm. So you think there's a little bit of cap involved in some of Crimsix?
Yeah, that's all I was trying to say. Was like it's not four teams, it's one team. And if it is one team, they're not doing it on purpose, right? It's not like they're saying like, I'm going to buy a league spot and try to pay people the least because it will piss everyone off, right?
Right.
You guys talked about it a lot, but like COVID changes things, and maybe people's business model was completely different as a part of COVID happening. But for the most part, I think most teams come in and they want to do the best that they can, right? They want to build a community, they want to build a fan base. And like us, I guess, and a lot of other teams, like, you want to treat the players right if you're going to be here long term. So saying that it's four teams, I just think it made the situation seem worse than it might actually be.
Right. Well,
Ben,
Ben,
I was trying to say.
Ben, I know you had some questions for him. Would love you to, ask away, because obviously yesterday Crimsix had a chance to talk. If those of you didn't see Crimsix in the stream yesterday, he was kind of ranting a little bit about it. It was all uploaded to the Zoomaa Clips channel on YouTube, so if you did end up missing it, you could go check it out. But Ben, I'm going to let you, listen, man, Val's been doing a great job on the Zoomaa Clips channel, man. He uploads everything. So if you guys missed it, there's also a Zoomaa VODs channel, because we delete VODs and stuff, but everything's uploaded to YouTube. So make sure to go check it out. But Ben, go ahead.
I think most of my questions are more other stuff, and we'll get into that later. I think I kind of agree with Alex. I think there was a little bit of cap, and if we want to pull up sort of the back and forth that Crim had with Alex yesterday,
probably doesn't
I just think, Alex, my only real question to you is sort of like, post that conversation and a few hours have passed, like, do you feel differently about what was said on Twitter? Do you think, like, from your POV that I know kind of the community sort of was aligning a little bit behind your side? Was there anything else kind of last word that you wanted in terms of that conversation?
No, I mean, I stand by what I said. I think that if anything, having that conversation at not like 9 p.m. Texas time, I think that a lot of that actually probably would have gone differently, just because it seemed like there was a lot of misinterpreting what I was trying to say by Ian. Right? Like, if you think about it, at one point he's like, you're daggering me. And obviously we can talk about it when he gets here, but actually it wasn't. I was trying to put in context in a way that he would understand the point that I was trying to make, right? And so then once people get emotional about things and they feel like they've been slighted, then they're not really going to focus on the topic that you're actually talking through. So I think, like, looking through it and having talked to as other team owners or other team GMs since then, like, my point still stands. Like, if you really want to protect the players, there are certain ways to do it. I think most people do have the players' best interest in mind. The ones, things are just different. And sometimes teams have different opinions than the players or community do when it comes to, like, how they're going to run things long term. So I still agree with what I said.
So I want to kind of put a pin in this for a sec, Tom, if you don't mind, and we'll see if Crim pulls up. I think to back up, like, way back up, because I see some spam in the chat. People don't really know much about you, Alex. Do you want to kind of, like, give your background, how you got involved with KSC, sort of like how you got to the point where you were a GM for a CDL franchise starting out?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. So I've been in esports for a long time, like 10 years or something like that. I actually worked back at Red Bull working on content when the Optic and Nate Shot stuff was happening. So very familiar with the COD scene, and sort of worked my way around the esports industry. I worked at Riot and YouTube working on esports, and actually left esports to go to the Rams, the LA Rams, for a couple of months. And that was right when the ownership group got into Call of Duty League. And I mean, there's a very public breakup about the way that their esports teams were managed before that I won't get into, but you can look it up. There's articles. And so it's sort of a last minute, hey, we no longer have the people running this that we thought we would. We know you know about esports. Can you come help us for a little bit? And as we started to develop it, I think we realized that there was a natural synergy there. And so I left the Rams to come over and do this full time, have been building out the management team, our new titles that we're getting into, our marketing teams. We have great leadership now. So been in esports for a long time and sort of transitioned throughout all sides of it, from the media business to the publisher and now to the team side. So I oversee all of the teams and just what we're going to be doing in esports and gaming as a company long term.
So I wanna kind of set the scene a little bit. So you touched on it. So you joined, obviously, post that kind of internal realignment. That was like literally right as sort of CDL was starting out. People were already sort of like in the process of aligning teams. Like, what was your experience like during that, I guess we'll call it year zero sort of free agency period? And how did you guys end up with the team that you started out with that year?
Ooh, that's a great question. So there's
Great question, back.
Yeah, it really is. So obviously I'd been trying to assist them from the side, and they'd been talking to players and people who wanted to pitch them teams for a while. As you know, most of those teams formed pretty quickly after champs that year. And so by the time that I joined, I think it was October or November, right before the roster lock deadline. So most of those teams had been formed, and we had, I think it was about 9 days to figure out what to do. We had put together a couple of potential options, or sorry, people had put together potential options and had been pitching them to us. But at that time, I was sort of just assisting, not really actually running that team full time. I was still working at the Rams. So we sort of had to take an approach of what can we do with what has been presented to us.
Okay.
And so that's how we got with that roster. I really liked and still really like Embry and Ricky as coaches. And I think that they bring a lot to an organization and align with the principles of how I want to run our team. So that was, I guess, why we decided to go down that path. As, like I said, at that point, most of the teams had been decided. So we sort of had a few limited options to put together.
This is like, so just so I understand, this is like when, you know, Pat Akes had gotten involved, and you're talking about that whole situation, right? When he had was his Pat sort of the leader and sort of helping
putting a team together. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, at that point, like I said, I wasn't doing it, and we have ownership that obviously loves Call of Duty. That's why they got in here, but they're not sitting in the chat figuring out how to put together teams, especially without coaches. So people were sort of pitching us full rosters to jump on, which I guess you saw some of it getting talked about on Twitter yesterday, but we pretty much had a few different people who were trying to do that. And Pat and Emery and Ricky and that team was definitely the best option that we had at the time.
Mm-hmm. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, Crim screenshot a little bit. He busted out the notebook, Alex. He didn't have enough words for you in a tweet, so he had to bust out the notebook page. It started off here at the top when Crim was saying, I will blast him to the fucking moon, and so should everyone else. We have an org for one of the biggest cities in the world that hasn't put out a single piece of content in 2 fucking years in a $300 million league. I get where Porter's coming from. I'm just a little bit confused because now he's talking about one org, and you keep bringing up, originally he was talking about 4. So once... Yeah,
I agree. He's essentially making my point there, right? Which is why I was like, yeah.
He walked it back a bit.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think once we get Crimsix in here, we can kind of get to the bottom of a little bit.
I mean, he'll agree he was wrong. I mean, he simply was wrong. There is not 1/3 of the league paying the minimum. There's one team paying the absolute minimum. One team that I know is pretty damn close to it. Other than that, I mean, some obviously pay a lot more than others, right? But there's like 2 teams that I would say are minimum or close to it.
Mm-hmm.
So getting off the whether or not Crim was fucking Pine Park discussion or not.
Good plug.
Want to kind of address another thing. So I want to give people the full timer and Alex here kind of leading up. So you obviously, like you said, kind of got involved sort of whilst that roster would be constructed. Like Q4 happened. So like the holiday season happened, the season starts. Obviously you guys didn't get out to the best starts. Were you like involved with the decisions to bring in Reese and Spark kind of at one point through February? Was that kind of part of your initial process here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Rams season ended in late December, early January, and that's when I just switched over full time to doing this. I'd been doing it pretty regularly. But at that point, you know, it became, you can focus a lot more on it when it's your only thing. So definitely was involved in that decision. I think that was at the point where we had Embry and Rick and the team, and everyone was all in LA for the first time. Everyone moved there pretty late, didn't start scrimming pretty regularly. So that was a decision that we made together as a team.
Cool. So Crim's here, so I want to kind of speed up through a few questions, and we'll get Crim involved. So you guys obviously finished out the season with a couple of different looks. Again, sort of not obviously the season that you wanted. And then sort of give kind of context into the decision to go with the roster you went through with year two, a mix of folks that teamed together before and have recently teamed on Rocker. Was that kind of led by your process? Was that sort of Ricky and Embry kind of involved with, say, hey, here's an idea of folks that had pre-existing chemistry in one event before?
Yeah, we worked, like the way that we work, and I sort of said it earlier, is like there's four of us that basically walk through that decision together, right? And eventually, I guess it is my call, but I really value their input. And so we come together, we walk through options, we figure everything out. At that point, and it might sound somewhat ironic now, I'm sure I'll get roasted in the chat, but we had actually committed to Reese at the end of season one, telling him like, hey, you know, we think you can be a good talent and we want to build around you. If you've only been in the CDL for a year and you're on an underperforming team, it can make it can limit some of those options of people who want to come play for you. So at a certain point, we had sort of maybe two potential teams that we could build together, and one ended up going to another org for that reason. You want groups of four, not groups of three. So we sort of, based on the way that the contracts work, there was 1+1s. A lot of people didn't really want to move too much. Sort of have what you have in terms of an option pool.
What happened? I was just gonna say, what happened with Vivid a little bit. I mean, listen, the past is in the past now, so we could talk about it a bit. I love what you guys are doing with the roster now. I absolutely love where you guys went with it, because I think you guys have a really good roster now. But how did the fallout with Reese even happen? Like, how does a player go from somebody who was at the top of the chain for you guys, like kind of that superstar player, to then kind of just getting, you know, traded or just sent off to somebody else? You know, like, how did that all play out? Was it something within the team? Was it something that you guys, like, how did it work out?
Yeah, that's why I said it might sound a little ironic based on that that's how it happened only a couple months later. But I think that, like, you just have different personalities in terms of how a lot of these players mesh together. We started off good, but I mean, as I'm sure you guys know, you have a couple bad weeks of scrims, and if personalities aren't meshing well, or certain people aren't putting in the right work on what they committed, you can get pretty frustrated pretty quickly. And I think we had actually talked to Reese when he first expressed frustrations. It was unfortunately, with the way that CDL was set up last year, those roster locks can be pretty early, and it can make it actually pretty difficult to accomplish some of these trades during the windows in which players want to, right? So, you know, but the more that they sit there, the more frustrated they get. So it was sort of unrealistic to accomplish what Reese wanted to accomplish. And I think if you look back at what Kenny said last year, where he said, well, we need to make a change, so it might just have to be me. That's sort of where we got to, unfortunately.
Right.
Reese's a good kid. We have no bad blood. We obviously, I mean, you saw it getting blown up on Twitter at some point last season. There was a lot of teams that wanted to pick him up. They're not exactly teams that would be great for career development or get him too much as part of that transaction. So we waited and found a team that was right for him, to do right by him, versus just, you know, sending him to any team that asked for $0.
So you think a lot of what Vivid was asking for was just like not even possible? You're saying, like,
in the time frames that he was asking for it was not possible, from what I understand. But again, if you saw at the time, we had about a day before the roster lock at that point, so we ended up trialing both Sheen and Caden Exceed. But you really only get one scrim with each of them. It's pretty tough, and then you're locked in for 5 weeks.
And listen, man, I know how it is too, because just being on the, you know, the other side with the New York subliners, when I took a step back and I was kind of seeing things from their perspective, like when a team comes to you and they're all yapping about each other and there's just like a lot of toxicness within the team, it could get really messy and complicated to deal with, for sure. So, you know, being in that spot is never easy. And I think that's something a lot of people in the chat don't understand, is like sometimes, you know, from the other side of things, from the business perspective of it, it could get really, really, complicated. It's difficult to move certain players around and do things you want to do, especially with, sometimes it's very difficult to make like trades or certain roster moves, or a certain player wants a certain player, but it's not as easy, so it's very difficult. But we do, I do want to.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, let's say this is interesting timing.
I was just gonna bring you in. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Dude,
Welcome.
Ben's looking mad cute right now, bro. Can we get a round of applause, dude?
Let's get a round of applause for Benjamin Scene. Let's get a win in the chat. Come on.
The facial hair. What's the?
Dude,
He does look good, dude.
Hey, bro, you're right. He looks. Ben, you look different today. There's a different.
He's going out tonight too. You might be a
Ben.
menace.
I think it's the haircut, bro. I got a really.
You might
good
be a
haircut.
menace tonight.
Yeah.
What you rocking on your feet tonight? Off white?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're gonna rock the slippers with no socks on
bro.
to the bar.
I don't want to. It's raining, so I don't want to wear like something too crazy and get wet. You've been over on that side of town. It is what it is.
We don't like the rain
All right,
here.
I want to get us back on topic though, Crim. While you're here, and we're talking about the Reese situation from your POV, like
I will say that okay, it was a reasonable price compared to all the other all the other players we were trying to get. Like some of them were fucking ridiculous. Like they were expensive as hell. Like I think Paul X was worth more than Clayster.
Damn.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I will say that buying Reese was probably the most expensive sub purchase like probably ever made.
Really?
Yep.
Even more than. So you're saying it was more than the transaction you guys had made for Kyler at that point?
Yes.
That's good work, Alex. You cashed out, my guy.
you.
That's
Okay,
great
good
work.
That's good work.
That's good work.
Yep.
Let's get Alex in the chat.
That I don't know who the fuck came up with that $900,000 for Kyler or some shit, but it wasn't that.
Damn, a 900,000.
No. He said the 900K wasn't true.
No, fuck no, hell no.
I
Call
sure
it
hope
Kyler.
not.
900K. What is he,
Yeah,
Lando fucking Norris? What do you mean?
Nico going.
900K.
No, people. That was the rumor, and I'm saying that rumor was not fucking true, dude.
Yeah, I don't know how that rumor even came out.
I'm saying Kyler buyout. I'm
Mhm.
like 80%, 90% sure that Reese was sold for more than Kyler was sold for.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
So just to kind of, I want to wrap this conversation. Then Crim, I'll fold you in, and we'll talk a little more about your conversation.
Okay, yeah. That buyout number,
Yeah.
the higher it is, the less the player gets paid. So you can say yes, yeah. So it's like, I mean,
I said that's not true.
Yeah. That's not true.
Well,
No,
theoretically,
not necessarily.
yeah.
If it impacts the team's overall budget, yes, it is fucking true.
No, because they take on the existing contract, so it's only if the player is interested in re-signing a new contract.
I've never seen a buyout where they don't force the player to sign a new contract with the new team.
Well, I think what Alex is saying, Crim, is that's more of like an org kind of decision on their internal structure. It's not like league-wide policy.
I mean, league-wise, yes, but the org is always going to make them sign a contract with that new org.
Every contract I've ever bought, we gave them a higher contract after that.
Wait, say that again?
Every contract that I've ever bought, every buyout I've ever made, if we made them sign a new contract, we gave them more money.
Okay. Well, I applaud you for that. I will say before we start, whether we beefed on Twitter and shit, like, I will say that I appreciate what you guys are doing at LAG, because you guys have been forking over the money. When I found out how much your Cold War team was getting salaried, I was like, wow, holy shit. You know what I mean? That's a lot. And especially for those players. So at least you're not doing what I'm getting frustrated at that other teams are doing, where they're just like, okay, let's try to make another underdog team that probably won't do well. There's a 5% chance they're just randomly good, right? You guys are actively trying to build a good team.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, too, Ian, you were playing Valorant, I think, but I specifically said I wasn't trying to beef with you, so I apologize if it came across that way.
Some modern-day love story.
Oh, this is fucking beautiful.
This is good. We're monitoring discussions.
The other thing, just
Go ahead,
really
Alex.
quick, though, is like, we are trying to do right by that, and you can tell by the fact that, like, you're complaining about CDL orgs only paying people on bare minimum, and we were playing challengers players over league minimum, right? So
Yeah, no,
I agree with you. I think that, like, you have to affect that change at, like,
LAG,
an org level.
you guys are never in that 1/3 I was talking about. You guys are never. I was never talking about you guys in that 1/3. And
I know.
Yeah, well, the community didn't know, and that's what you guys felt like you guys had to say something.
Yep.
I mean, I would say, like, on this show, Tom and I always talked about, like, to back up a sec, like, when you guys had signed that silly app team, and I know Tom and I had some strong thoughts on that team.
Sure.
But we had always said on this show that we felt like your guys were in a really good position for that year 2 free agency because you guys are an attractive market. You guys, I've heard, have got a sick practice facility, but just overall, like, the resources you're putting in, it was always going to be an attractive place for people to play. So I do feel like we, at least Tom and I, try to give the community that perspective that you guys weren't like some other orgs that aren't all in on debt investment in terms of both from player satisfaction, but also in terms of actual salary and bonuses and other financial structure.
For sure. And I think that, like, that's where we were trying to get to, because we had, committed to Reese and there's just limited available options and people want to pair together and play with certain people. It was difficult in year 2, but I think we finally got there in year 3 once a lot more of those contracts were open and we had shown people that we're willing to invest in them as people, not just assets.
So why don't we talk a little bit about that? So you guys managed to make a pretty good pivot from rosters, I think relatively, like, can you walk us through a little bit sort of how this new team has sort of come together from your POV?
They picked the wrong man AR.
Tony, come on, you gotta do this now. Tony, this is what we're doing.
Sorry.
This is what we're doing. This became a City versus Alex show.
Sorry.
It should have been Lamar.
You're right.
That's tough.
Well,
I'm just kidding, by the way. I'm good friends with Austin. I'm just fucking busting balls. But you did pick the wrong AR.
Alex, walk us through kind of champs happened. Sort of how did this team come together?
Yeah, I mean, we always knew that we wanted to sort of go for it this year, right? Like, once more options were available on the table. I'm always going to try to be transparent here without, making some people feel bad about certain options. But we immediately reached out to Thieves to grab Kyler. We felt he was, like, unfortunately, his stock was kind of shot from last year. So we thought that we had a really good opportunity because we believed in him as a player and as a person, to jump in when other teams, it might take them a little bit, right? Like, they might sit there and assess the market first before realizing that they wanted to go back to him. We think he's an incredible asset, so we started from there and essentially tried to build around him throughout all of these roster mania situations. As you know, like, sometimes things seem available and then they're not. So we basically went down the line with him. There was a lot of people who we could have put really solid rosters together, but it sort of always kept coming back to these core 3 that Kyler really wanted to play with. And so that's sort of where we started. We got Kyler, we got a Slasher, which we felt was like a really big pickup at the time because he was obviously off contract. So previously, if you had a AR of his skill and maybe his stock was also a little bit higher from not having been benched or playing online the last 2 years, people would have had to fight for that, or you would have really had to pay a big buyout for it. So we really felt that starting with the 2 of them was pretty solid. And then as Pierce and ASIM talked about in some of our content, like, they always really wanted to pair together. So it sort of naturally fell into place, which was really nice.
So we've asked some good questions here. I'm going to ask a little bit of a tough one, if you don't mind.
Ooh.
So I think everybody in this channel is decent friends with all 4 of the guys listed. Even Kyler comes in here occasionally and vibes. Love Austin, love Pierce. They've teamed before, and candidly, while they did win a lot, the tail end of that team didn't really end well. There was a lot of kind of argument, bickering. I think they were both speak towards, I think, probably trying to take a different personal approach. Like, from your POV, is that something you're looking to make sure doesn't happen from day one? Like, are you cognizant of the fact that you've got, like, even guys like ASIM and Hook are pretty determined and have thoughts on how to play Call of Duty? Like, from a management POV, is this something that you're kind of thinking about and how you make sure that they're kind of staying on track and developing as a team?
Yeah, it's actually something that we care about a lot because, I mean, sometimes it's worked well and sometimes it's backfired, but we really try to not let the players manage every aspect of the team and do things like slightly differently than they've been done. But that also doesn't really work if you sort of set them up for failure in that situation. So that was something that we really had to get solved before we decided to commit to all of them and walk through it. So and I'm sure Pierce is in the chat, but initially when we were building that team, he also felt very strongly about what you're talking about and how things had worked before. But the last time that they teamed was a while ago. I know he's grown a lot. I know Austin's grown a lot. And so we actually figured that the best way to pull, to see if it would be something that they both would commit to working through was to get them to just talk. And so we actually had them talk through it, and they came out feeling really good, especially based on the way that our team is set up, which is like, I think how a lot of the teams have worked in the past. It's like, well, I don't like this guy, so we need to get him out of here. But if the org's not going to do anything about it, then you're kind of screwed. The way that we tend to do it is like, hey, if that happens, like, you just got to worry about you and trust us to figure out how to take that step. So, like I said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In season 1, we had a lot of issues with that. But so I think we basically tried to set them up to make sure that that wouldn't be an issue from day one. Otherwise, they wouldn't commit.
Alex, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
It's not regarding your team. It's regarding about what we talked about. So what did you think my whole point was by saying, to me, a lot of people took what I said about the minimum salaries. They started talking financials. It is almost like nothing to do with financials. Financials to a player is like, that's like the reaction. You know what I mean? It's not the root. It's not the cause of the point I was trying to make. The point I was trying to make is like, we need to keep players in the league. But that's what I meant by saying that shit. And I see on Reddit, those are the big brain fuckers. And those guys were all talking, business, profit margins, all this shit, dude. At the end of the day, my whole point was that if there's no players and there's no community, right? Like, this shit it will not exist.
Give us an example, Krim, to make it.
So, so Zen and Tommy and I talked about this last night, right?
Yeah.
Like, I brought up the point of Halo, Halo 3 was fucking huge. Halo 2 was arguably huge, but Halo 3 is where shit started blowing up, right? Halo Reach comes out. The players, those big name players don't like the game, right? And they just start dropping. They just start leaving. The whole, all those sponsorships are gone. You know what I mean? There was, fucking T-Squared was on Dr. Pepper cans and all this shit, Doritos sponsorship, all this stuff, right? At the end of the day, right when those players started leaving and the new players coming in, did not build a fan base or a following before that, right? The esport almost died in 2 to 3 years time.
Oh, it did die.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to avoid by bringing this up, because the thing is, I would say right now we're in an even worse spot than they were, because right now we have a lack of financials, money pushing through to the players, but we also have an incentive to go somewhere else now, and that's the whole Warzone thing. So what I'm saying is this shit, what those orgs that I was talking about, 1/3, what I mean is 1/3 of the league, right, is okay with morally screwing over their players. Or they're not okay with it, but they're letting it happen. You know what I mean? And I mean, there's a lot of things that I can't discuss that I know have happened because players are all under NDAs. There's fucking horror stories, man. I'm not even kidding. And
that guy's in trouble, Krim.
Yeah, well, I can't talk about all that shit. But my whole point of all this is that if the players with the big following, right, drop overnight, what do we actually have? Because now we have no fucking viewers, right?
Hold on. I want to contest that for a second, Krim. And Alex, if this is something obviously you can talk about, feel free to say so. I think the difference between, say, the Halo 3 situation and this is co-streaming is a large thing now. We've seen in other games that's a viable option for players that retire. Alex, is that something that the ownership groups in CDL and maybe the league is sort of talking about? How do we, when players transition out, how do we still keep them involved in the ecosystem, being their ability to kind of recycle or co-stream all this live CDL content?
Well, to add to that too, it is on YouTube. Keep that in mind, because somebody like me can't do a co-stream because I'm simply just on Twitch.
I'll speak from our team's perspective, just to make sure that I don't put words in any other team's mouths. But I think like the goal is always to increase the product, right? And I think that like the product, like Crim said, everything that you said at the beginning there, I agree with. The players are the product. How do we keep them involved? How do we get people like you, Zoomaa, to not just leave and go play Warzone constantly, but focus back into the community that you came from? That's why we try to invest in people like Brian, and we've made similar offers to some of our players in the past. And I actually think that there's a lot to be said about the path of people like Rambo and how we can keep people like that making decisions in the game and in the community. So I think it's something that we focus on, and I know other teams share similar mindsets around that stuff. The other thing I would also agree with you on, Ben, too, is like Halo slightly also died just because they don't have games coming out constantly. Halo 4 multiplayer was straight up not good. That's when they went through a transitionary period between, is it 343 or Bungie? Is Microsoft doing it? They're rebuilding all this stuff. So I agree there.
Halo
I think
4
it
was
is
kind of, I mean, not to cut you off, but it died in Reach. Like, they were in the middle of the downward slope right when Halo 4 came out. Yeah, but continue.
I mean, to be fair, real quick though, to touch on Halo, I mean, Call of Duty was also just way more appealing to Halo players because there was a lot more money into it. There was a lot more viewers. Like Halo wasn't a huge game. Halo was a starting point, and I think Call of Duty took a lot of notes from Halo. But Halo, no matter how good the game was, they didn't have a franchise league. Like, I don't really like comparing it to Halo because I think they're like two different beasts.
I'm gonna call a little bit of cap there because having seen the scope of those old school MLG events back in the early 2000s, I think you're a little bit off base there.
Wait, no, but Halo, you don't think Call of Duty was more appealing for a Halo player?
Oh, I don't contest.
Well, in terms of the money is the only thing, no? The money. That's why they did
let's
it.
talk about it, right? So like I think the roots of Halo and the roots of MLG are kind of tied together, right? Because you're talking about the Halo Pro Circuit versus the CWL. And I think they're similar systems, but they're different in some aspects. I think a lot of the learnings from the Halo circuit and MLG circuit were then applied to CWL.
I agree.
The product's a little bit better. But I think they're similar in nature in the way that, I think like a core tenet of what makes console shooters very good, both from like an attendance perspective when you're at events, is how you have engagement drives viewership and drives people attending events. And it's that like combo, that open ecosystem that feeds into the pro ecosystem is what I think made like Halo great back in the day.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead, Krim.
Like, dude, Ben, like, I hate the fact that we're talking about Halo. I was just using that shit as a fucking comparison, dude. Yeah. Like, I want to look at the past, right? And Alex, did you see my last tweet that I sent to you about how esports isn't about fucking profit margins? It's not even a fucking business, right? The moment the community and the players and all that shit, right? That is how businesses are created. If you take that away, there is no fucking business. And that's my whole point, is like, you can't just openly screw over both of them at the same fucking time. None of them should be acceptable, by the way. And the fact that we're in a $300 million league, right? And if I'm in that fucking owner's call, right? And say I'm Hector, right? Say I'm like doing everything in my fucking power to make this shit profitable, to make, I'm the fucking, the trunk of the tree, dude. If I don't do my job, then no one fucking prospers, right? And my whole point is like, dude, what they're doing, right? Or should I say the lack of what they're doing, right? Should not be acceptable in any sort of fashion at all. And if I was in that call, I would fucking lose my mind. I'd just be like, dude, what are y'all doing?
But here's my counter.
They're not doing much.
I think Alex spoke to this a little bit, Krim. This is where I think I differ from you. Like, I see your POV on there are probably a few orgs that you think aren't really kind of using all the resources available to kind of both like improve their team and recognition of their team, but also help grow the esport as a whole. But would you sit here and say that like, you know, over a majority of the league isn't out there like creating content, trying to drive that player engagement? And let's be honest here, a tough environment for local market engagement, because right when the league started, COVID hit, so people couldn't go out there and do fan fests and meet and greets and all the things to get like casual non-Call of Duty fans to understand, hey, now you've got a Call of Duty team that's attached to your market and they're out here playing games.
I mean, dude, honestly, the thing that I'm seeing, Ben, is I'm seeing a lot of excuses, right? Fucking, like, why can't we just adapt? What orgs were putting out gameplay shit, right? Who was doing that? And during COVID?
That's bad content, though. The owners will never.
It's not bad content, though.
I'm saying that's a bad I'm saying that's a bad content plan that they weren't doing that. That has nothing to do with the structure of how you're organizing the team.
Yes, but I'm saying that content, right, is what the community watches.
I agree.
So if there's no content, the community's getting fucked over. And that's my whole point, is like, it's the org's responsibility to say, like, you know, dude, FaZe, for example, have you guys seen how many videos they're putting out? I'm convinced that either they were told to put out videos or you're going to get fined, right? Put out video. You guys need to make content. And the fact that that's not a league-wide, like, I don't know, like mandatory fucking weekly shit that people got to do blows my mind. Like,
you want like deliverables or something. Like, you want to make sure that everybody has to hit a certain amount of content a month. Every team needs to have to do something.
Tommy, I want deliverables from Activision placed on the teams. Like, that's what it should be. And Alex, you'll know better than me. Is there something like that set up?
Depends on the team, right, Alex? It depends on the team. Yeah. Which I guess.
No. I'm saying from Activision to the teams.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, well, only Alex would know.
I feel like this upcoming year though is the real like test, because like the first 2 years COVID threw a wrench in everything. I have to assume the next season is like the actual sort of like the first year of the CDL, like the way things were actually supposed to be. So I mean, I expect teams to make content. I expect the CDL to be doing documentary type content, right? Like, look at Drive to Survive Formula One. I didn't know a thing about F1. I watched that series immediately. I'm engulfed in that world, and I mean, that's the truth. I knew nothing about F1. That came out. It's like if the CDL goes and makes an F1 type documentary, you're going to bring in more casual fans. Like, I agree, teams need to be making content. The league needs to be making content. But like, I'll even use Ultra as an example. In COVID, like they had to let go some of their content people, and they had like an incredible content team. So I don't know. I feel like this next season is the true test.
Good content,
great content.
Yeah.
If any team isn't putting out content this next season, that's like the ultimate. Like, come on.
Yep.
So can we go back? I feel like we bounced around a lot there. You asked me a couple questions, Ian, but I think like ultimately you started with like, here's what I was trying to say. Do you disagree with that? I don't disagree with that at all. And I think that like the stuff that you're saying about making sure that we keep the people and that the community is the heart of it and that it's not all about numbers, I think you'd find that most of these teams agree there, and we have to work together to prove that that's the way that you make money, right? Is that it's not pinching, is that it is investing in the community. You bring up Hector as the example in your tweet, like, yeah, there's a reason that he's the most successful, right?
I think that content that they put out on Huntsman was the only reason why they were the only profitable team. I think that's the only fucking reason. It's because they and the thing is, well, yeah, other things included, obviously, but the whole thing is like, dude, no one's even fucking trying.
Yeah, that's the most important thing is people don't even give a fuck, and that's a serious problem.
And that's scary, dude.
But is your issue what is that? Is they like? Are you saying they is like half the league, a third of the league? Like who is they in this situation?
Dude, I would say that. See, the one thing that Hector, you know, I talked about in that tweet, like, dude, Hector knows how to make content, how to build a community, how to do all that shit, right? At the end of the day, you need that to make a fucking profit, period. That's how esports always like operates and how it should operate. You know? And I think if you're not doing that and you're still making profit, like, holy shit, you would be making so much more if you did that. You know, that's just every single team should be doing this. You know?
Go ahead, Alex.
Let's break it down section by section. So like, okay, so if that's how you build community and that's how you build content, as the league evolved from anyone can have a team, anyone can do anything, you can win a tournament, the prices got more expensive. The overhead, just as Zinni was just talking about, like you got to keep people on staff. Sometimes you got to let people go. It's a lot more expensive than it was. You need people on the other side of that who are counterbalancing them, right? Like theoretically in these leagues, you should want everyone trying to spend as much money as they possibly can to get the team that wins. For some teams, that doesn't work every year, right? Like I was just talking to our staff about it the other day, is like our goal as an organization is to build winning teams with a fiscally responsible mindset so that when we need to go big, we can go big. And you have to remember that some of these people, it's not as easy as like, oh, they're not doing anything, they're fucking idiots. Like they have a plan, right? And that plan might not always be the same as everyone else's. Maybe they don't have a plan, maybe it's a bad plan, but everyone approaches things differently. So I feel like you can't just have 12 hectares, right? You have to have a varying mindset.
Well, you know what I'll say? Dro, I hope you don't get mad at me for saying this, but Dro told me when we won champs that did not help acquire any new sponsors or anything of like significant fucking value. You know, maybe it did in the following year, but pretty much that winning philosophy is like, it sucks to say, especially because I'm a player, but dude, if you're operating like that, like that's a fucking miscue right there. Well, I think you need to be doing both at the same time, especially if you're operating an org, you know?
I agree. There's no reason that I would be offended at that. The only people that should be offended at that is NV sales team. I feel like that says more about, like, that was during COVID. That is during, like,
true. I think
we have short time frames.
It was a Mickey Mouse ring, Porter. You know, nobody really gave a fuck.
It's also timing where you're trying to get deals in, right?
Exactly. No,
so like COD chances in August, you know, marketing departments have only so much spend left at that point in the year. So it's a question of, do they have money for that year, or are they looking to find engagement in the next year? So that's
I think COVID was the actual reason why you know we couldn't make anything off of that success, because from the sponsor, from like, you know, say you're a sponsor and you just don't have extra money to spend on an esports team. So, but my whole point is that like you need to be doing both at the same time, and you need to be requiring that of all players. And I think the biggest thing that we talked about, me, Tommy, and Zinni last night, was the consistency. Like that's the point that I want to talk about, Alex, is like, you know, you guys have actively tried, you know, like multiple, like two, would you say you had 2 unsuccessful years?
Yeah, we got 11th both here.
Yeah. So yeah, but the thing is, like, I know from, you know, what I hear and, you know, what's going on with the players, like I've heard nothing bad about LEG. So, so the point stands. So I even have more respect for you guys, because you guys are fucking trying. You know, you're throwing up the cash to get the players, to be able to make the content. You know what I mean? To be able to build a fan base. But then there's other teams that don't even fucking try, man. And like, to me, they just seem like leeches to the people who are working their ass off.
Just wait. You didn't. This is what I was trying to get at yesterday. You say teams a lot. I feel like there is not just one doing any of these things. Yeah. No, totally. I'm not going to call anyone out either. I'm saying that there are certain teams that don't care about certain aspects, and I agree with you. And I feel like if we'd gotten to that point last night, I feel like we talked about like 40 different things in 10 tweets. But I think that's something that takes time, and there are certain people who operate businesses completely differently, right? Like there are some teams in this league that their whole goal is to get as much content as they can so that they can bundle that together and sell that for ad money. They might not care about sponsors. There are teams like us where our whole goal is to build products that we can use to take people to SoFi Stadium and have esports events there, right? And like build a local audience. Teams do things differently. I don't think it's accurate to generally say that teams or a third of the league don't care about winning, that teams or a third of the league don't care about the players or content or anything like that. I think it's different teams, and maybe that's worse, but I do think that you have people trying in areas. It just might not be the areas that you see or that you measure up against the most.
I'll agree that maybe they are trying, but maybe they're just trying in the wrong ways, and maybe they just need fucking help.
Their execution is terrible, and a lot of teams do need help.
exactly.
A lot of teams have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say that. But it's just like, man, it just blows my mind. It's like you guys threw up 25 million, but you have no fucking idea what you're doing.
Well, it's also important to note that like a lot of these teams buying in aren't endemic to esports. Like you have a lot of sports owners, a lot of business people. Like
it takes time.
The buy-in was rumored to be what, 25, 30 million dollars. Like it's not like 12 endemic esports orgs said, "Fuck it, here's 25 mil, let's get in." That's not the way it worked. It's important that these non-endemic organizations hire people who are endemic and actually know people and know the players and are on the same page with building. Because, I mean, a lot of these teams I feel like got burned year one. And it's one thing if you get burned year 1 or 2 and you're like, okay, let's lower salaries a little bit. We got burned. But I think Ian's more so talking about the teams who even year 1 didn't even try. Like,
yeah, I agree. Yeah. No, and like I said, too, some of that stuff, we walked through a little bit of how we did things year 1 and like the time crunches that we're under. Just like you brought up, like it's not 12 endemic esports orgs. So some of these people had to spin up facilities, content teams, sales teams. Like they maybe just weren't equipped or ready to do that. And that is on them. And like you said, that's bad. But I do think that most people, I would say every single team is trying. It's just in different ways. And the goal is like, if this is going to be a long-term league and not just like next year, I mean, knock on wood, like won't be the last year of CDL. You might find that there are teams like us who, in year 3, we quote unquote started caring competitively, right? There are a lot of teams like that I think will invest. Sometimes it takes time. COVID made things really hard. Like, I mean, you saw these articles, teams were taking PPP loans. Maybe their whole goal was to build events and have their fans show up. And like, that's what they optimized around. And then they couldn't. So like Zinni said, like this is the true first year. And they might be optimizing still in different areas than you think they need to optimize in.
Listen, as long as we see some effort, because I also saw some people in the chat, I saw Mito put in the chat, but, you know, Hector even saying on one of his, I think it was the eavesdrop or something, he said it on something where he was reaching out to some teams to do content, and they weren't even getting back to him. And I think that says a lot, because we know what Hector brings to the table in terms of content and what he could do for, you know, in terms of just numbers. I feel like Optic is kind of just like leading the way in content. Like, why wouldn't any of these teams want to work with Hector? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, that's just, it just goes to show that some teams legit just don't give a fuck. And I think that's what the main problem is with what Porter's saying. And it's just it's gonna put this league in a position where we don't want to be at. You know, it's gonna end up being a Warzone show in a couple years.
See, what I'm really worried about, right, and why I feel like I need to talk about this and make this like
public.
Public is like I'm seeing this happen before my eyes, you know, and I was in Halo when it fell, you know, and dude, at the end of the day, it's like, I hate to keep, I know I keep saying that at the end of the day, I'm sorry, chat, but I want to, after I'm done playing, if there is no CDL, like that cuts my individual opportunities to like a few fucking things. It all of a sudden went from, I can go 10 different directions, right? Now, okay, there's the CDLs going way downhill, right? And now I have nowhere to go. Or now I have 2 choices instead of 10. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. And I'm also trying to look out for like the newer generation, because I don't want them coming in just, you know, at the mercy of all these orgs pulling this shit. Dude, something I want to talk about. Man.
Wait, stop there. Let's address each of the things. I think no offense, but that's like kind of why things spiral a lot of times. And I feel like that's where you can be impactful, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have the knowledge. It's just about how you frame it. And I think that if you look at that, that is like somewhat of like a negative, like this is where it's going, right? Which is not necessarily true. I think you have the power to change those things. Orgs have the power to change those things. You hopefully, like I said, get people who are pros and have the same knowledge you do, and they develop into people within the organization that have power to change things. You got to do it in the right way. And I know you guys are saying blasting people always works. It's the power of like telling someone they're shitty on Twitter. I think I actually wrote it down. Your exact quote is, "No one is standing up and saying it's not okay, but after this video, they'll have to, and it won't be okay anymore." I guarantee you that owners do not look at your video and go, "Damn, now I feel like I feel like he's going to force me to change because he called me a shitter." Right?
I agree with that. We every single player in this league agrees that like, and that's the frustration is I feel like whether I make it public, whether I go through proper channels, whether I do this and that, it doesn't matter. Nothing truly gets done.
But they're just going to tell you to fuck off if you do it that way, right? They're going to be like, this guy's the reason that the league is going down.
Yeah.
Dude, the amount of calls that I've had about topics, like one of them I was specifically talking about, you know, all the way to the fucking head of the snake, right? The tip of the iceberg, right? We had a long discussion, whole bunch of higher ups, the commissioner, all this stuff. And then like a month later, I'm like messaging them like, hey, what's the outcome? What's the result of any of this? Like, did you guys forget it? I felt like they forgot about it. And that's like not good, you know?
Yeah, everyone needs to
what was their
I don't know what
was their response when you brought that up? Did they say, hey, we're still working on it? Like, what did they say?
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, we're still working on it. And then like 2 months later, still nothing. And now I'm seeing like, okay, I changed absolutely nothing. Like that was about a year ago. So, and it had to do with, you know, forcing players to use controllers and shit.
I don't know. I feel like the issue is like there's so many. First and foremost, like it's pretty simple. Players, organizations, the league, everybody needs to be held accountable and growing the league. Like it needs to be everybody's goal simply to grow the league. I think it also comes down to a lack of teams, right? If 1 out of 12 teams isn't necessarily doing what we would consider the proper things, it's a lot different if 1 out of 20 is doing it, right? If there are 19 teams doing the correct things, that's a lot more room for these bigger name players, these up and coming amateurs, whatever it may be. It's a lot less impactful for one team if there's 20 teams. But unfortunately, we have 12 teams and a lot of players and a lot of talent that pretty much has nowhere to go. So it also, I feel like expansion is super important to mention here. It's like the lack of teams makes it like more unfortunate.
I mean, do you think expansion would really change it that much?
I mean, I doubt there'd be 4 to 8 more teams that come in and pay the minimum or do the things that Crim is referring to. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, when 1 out of 12 team, it's a numbers game. I mean, 1 out of 12 is. Go ahead, Alex.
No, I would also say like I don't know that expansion necessarily solves that. I think time solves that, right? So like you saw in year 1, OGLA put very different effort in than LA Thieves did. Right. So like we don't necessarily have to wait for expansion. Sales can change some of that too. But in general, you want more. Right.
And I think to that note, Alex, like I hate to bring it up again, but like hopefully post-COVID, people can actually like activate and market. Like some of that will come into fruition. Again, that's sort of a longer term play. But those strategies really can't activate right now because you just can't really in many markets get people in a room.
And listen,
100%.
Going on to the future of the league too, because, you know, you always have people in the chat like, oh, we're dying, we're fucked, this and that. I mean, that's just bullshit. If you're a fan of Call of Duty and you see these rosters that are about to be playing up against each other, these top 12 rosters going into next year, or we'll say like top 10, because there's a couple rosters we don't know what the fuck's going on. Tony, we're going to get to that. But, you know, the talent is just fucking nuts. Like, the league is so exciting. I feel like we have so much potential to actually grow this thing and scale it to a whole nother level if it's done the right way. And I think the reason why Porter's losing fucking his shit and he's going on socials is because, you know, he doesn't want it to run out of time. He doesn't want that window to just, like, close. You know, it's important that a lot of the shit that we're talking about, we're bringing to light and making public now, hopefully we see some change. You know, we need to see some change. Because I think it's really important to see this league succeed, and I think everybody in here, including myself, everybody in this call, everybody in the chat, we all love COD. We all want to see COD succeed. And I think with everything, all the tools and all the pieces that we have, especially with, you know, the competition and some of the personalities we have going into next year, I mean, this next year could be huge for us if it's done the right way. Huge. And obviously, you know, that was part of doing the show as well. Like, we want to be pumping out a whole bunch of shows during the, you know, we'll say season 2 of the Flank, season 3 of the league. Like, we're really excited for it. So hopefully, you know, this show and everything that's been talked about can change some things and turn some heads.
Since it's happening live, you know, who wants to do a show on Sunday?
Are you talking about Slasher?
Yeah.
Yeah, Slasher. Yeah, Slasher's gonna come on. He wants to do a show. I mean, again, it's the off season, so, you know, it's kind of dead, but at the same time, it's not. I mean, we've had a lot to talk about the last couple weeks, but I mean, that's just how the cookie crumbles in the off season. But we'd love to have Slasher on, and obviously, we really do appreciate you, Alex, for coming on, and Porter, and I think for the most part, man, it's always better to hear you guys talk about it. I mean, that's why I do like the show, because you guys can just talk about it rather than just tweet back and forth, and you guys are kind of limited on what you can say. And I think at that point, it looked at, like I was looking at those tweets and it looked more of an argument, but I don't think it was an argument. I think it was just a debate, and you two were both kind of, you know, agreeing with each other in your own way. You know what I'm saying?
We were, I mean, I was specifically not talking about LAG at all, and I think the community misunderstood that.
I didn't think
the community's always going to run with like the X versus X thing, especially since you guys were having a late night convo. There's always
the community and the flank thumbnail designer. But I think in general,
listen, Tom and I are here hustling for views, okay?
Yeah, we're hustling, man. We're hustling.
In general too, I think like, and that's why I was saying if you can like formulate, because what you're saying here and what you said last night, it makes sense, right? But even like, I am knowledgeable and passionate about this subject, and if I look at that, dude, I don't know what the fuck you were saying half the time. Like, it was not on topic whatsoever. And I feel like that's like where you can be powerful and you can grow and you can help the league. And you should.
It's put my brain in a tweet. You know?
Theoretically, we should be actually like really optimistic about the league. There are parts that I think could be worrisome, right? Like, you can be like, wow, so much viewership is happening in Warzone. In my opinion, those people probably weren't playing 4v4 COD in August to begin with, right? Warzone is bigger than it's ever been before, or Call of Duty is bigger than it's ever been before because of Warzone. So there should be like a focus on trying to introduce those fans to the competitive community. And like the hope would be that as we get back to live events and as we do more, this is actually like really good. It just feels bad now because it's super muted. We've been playing online leagues. People aren't making videos or tweeting for a month. Like, that stuff will get sorted out, and I think we'll see like the true power of what a franchise league.
I mean, listen, COVID definitely didn't help at all. I mean, when I was with the New York Subliners and we first signed with the team, we were living with each other in the city. You know, we had so many good content ideas. We were always filming, always doing photo shoots, always doing cool shit. And then the minute COVID hit, it just all hit the fan. Because there's only so much you could do, you know. Once COVID hits and you know some of the rules change, it just kind of changes the whole fucking thing.
Rooms together. I mean, it was
it's just. I mean, there's no events, no content, there's nothing. It just kills everything. So that definitely didn't help. And I don't know if we'd be having this conversation if COVID never hit. But I think that's something looking out in the future. You know, with things trying to get back to normal now and everything. You know, hopefully.
We would, because the league didn't start with COVID. The league had a few months before COVID hit. So.
Yeah. We had 3 events.
Some of the teams we're talking about didn't get impacted by COVID. It just, you get what I'm saying, right?
No, I definitely get what you're saying. For sure. And Alex, honestly, it's a pleasure to have you on, man. I think you're the first GM to come on the show. No, Ben? First one?
I think so.
Which is, you know, we appreciate you coming on, man. We actually have one of your teammates who kind of wants to come on and join us.
User was moved to your
channel. I don't know if he's here right now. Asim, are you there?
Hey, Tom.
What's going on, Ace? I heard you wanted to make a little surprise appearance.
Listen, I just wanted to come in here and back up Alex because I saw a lot of Alex's in the chat in the beginning of the show.
Not from Mama Zuma. Mama Zuma was spamming Alex in the chat.
That's good stuff.
Mama Zuma was on Alex's side. But what's up, Ace? How's the off-season been going? I heard you're filming, Ace, and you were just here in Los Angeles actually filming content. Let's get a round of applause.
Courtesy of Alex.
Courtesy of Alex. Let's get a Alex in the chat. But how's the off-season going, man?
It's going good. Like you guys were talking about, like that was a big thing when I joined with LAG. Like they wanted to do content, but they wanted to do it in a way where it's like in person. So they flew us all out.
Yeah.
And they filmed with us for like a full week so that they wouldn't bother us with like Discord stuff and like gameplay stuff.
Bro, it's all it takes, man. You see teams like Paris. I'm gonna call them out because I don't give a fuck. It's teams like Paris who don't do anything, and it's like, listen, man, 1 week of good filming can get you months of content. Like, no bullshit. Like, you could film for a few hours for a week every day, and the next thing you know, you have a bunch of content. I'm looking at London a little bit. I think London could do a little bit more. I think Florida can do a little bit more with some of their content. I think some of the teams that are doing a great job, I think New York is doing a great job. I think Atlanta FaZe is starting to pump out some stuff. LA Thieves, LAG, obviously. Minnesota Rocker has been great.
Ultra does really good.
Ultra,
Ultra has good content.
So there's positives. So listen, I know a lot of it sounds negative. I also want to focus on the positives too. You know, there's a lot of teams that are putting in the work, and it would be great for you guys to go check out some of these content pieces that some of these guys are making. Like Los Angeles Gorillas just released a video with Asim and Hook. You know, go check that out. It's on YouTube. Make sure to go give it a listen. Go give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, and there's like 10 more on the way too. Like that was like the main thing I wanted to come in and just be like, just being on LAG for less than a month. Like they are making the effort to do it, and I mean I know Porter like backed it up too, but I just didn't want people thinking that like they weren't making a conscious effort for content either.
No, 100%.
That's I think like a good example of waiting until the time is right and improving in certain areas. Like the first year like I said, I explained why we were really behind. So we used an agency for some of the content. The second year you're hiring people in, some people work, some people don't. You might not be able to hire enough people, but like now we're going all in, we're trying it differently. We've done more views in like the 3 weeks since we've had these guys signed than we did the first 2 years combined.
Wow.
Right. And that's like, now we're starting to make changes. Right.
That's great, man. That's great. That's actually a crazy stat. And then one more thing, because I know Crim might have to go soon. I know he's muted out right now. I don't know if he's still here. But I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to say one more final thing before we close the conversation. If there's anything else, Porter, you want to say?
They both head off.
Oh, go ahead, Tony. Say what you got to say. We're not done.
Alex.
I still want to talk about some other stuff that CDL Intel tweeted. I'm just talking about the Alex and Crim, debate.
I just want to thank Alex for preferring to build around me instead of Crim. It's a no-brainer, and I couldn't agree more with your stance on that. And just want to thank you. Me and Alex actually have never spoken personally, just so we're all on the same page. It's just an absolute pleasure to see you pick me over this fat fuck.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Jesus Christ.
I'm formerly obese. Crim, tell him what's allowed before I get called an asshole.
Yeah, no, I was morbidly obese.
Thank you. Correct. And so was I. I have the fat card for 3 more years.
Oh, you were. Is there a level beyond that? Because that's Black Ops 2.
Okay.
Yes, honey, you was pretty bad, but you're looking good now, baby. How you
Listen, better days ahead, am I right?
He looked like a bowling ball.
I was pudgy, but sorry, I had to throw that in there. But you two, please. You two, please.
But listen, Porter, anything else you want to say before you dip out? Because I know you have to go, so I don't want to keep you. I don't want to hold you up if you have to dip.
Nope. I mean, we talked about it. I just think everyone's got to be better.
Yeah, I agree, man.
Like, I want to hear less excuses from not only players or
more effort
and activists. Yeah, the excuses and effort and effort.
Yeah, man. If Hector hates you up, say yes. If Hector wants to make some content, I would say yes next time, ladies and gentlemen. But I think other than that, Alex, you got anything you want to say before you dip out? Or you could say you're welcome to stay for the rest of the show. We're just going to talk about some of the stuff that CDL Intel tweeted out. But is there anything else you want to say about the debate?
No, I agree. People should do better, and there are a lot of ways to do it. And I'm thankful that you gave us the opportunity to tell people about that. I'm happy to stay if you think it's valuable. If not, I can get the fuck out of here.
No, good. Incredible.
Alex, it's awesome, and I really, really appreciate you coming on. For real, I would love to have more GMs come on, more coaches, just more owners, just a lot of people on the other side of things, because I just feel like we always hear from the players. It's just always players. It's never anybody else. So you never want to hear one side of the story, because it just fucks everything up. You got to hear everybody talk from every different and see it from every different POV. But what's up, Porter?
No, I 100% agree. I think that, even from orgs to players, man, like there's a lot of things that, even players aren't even aware of. So maybe I'm wrong on everything I've ever fucking said, but like from my point of view, that's where I'm coming from. So I think that honestly, getting like owners, GMs, like coaches, even like anyone that wants to like talk about this stuff and just educate people, like I would love that. I think the community would like it too.
Stop hitting people with your broadsword and they'll do it.
Yeah, Porter, where do you get these analogies?
Porter.
Oh shit. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, like, I thank you, Porter, for like actually making this like public, because it's something that, like, I won't say it's completely directed to like that's impacted me, but it's definitely been a challenge the last couple of years, just being like a absolute no one and like coming into the scene and being like manipulated in a way where I have to just be by other orgs' mercy. And like, I think it's what you're doing. Like, I know a lot of people might think like you're the villain, but like you're actually it's actually a good cause. And I know it's the absolute opposite. And I know that Clay's also tried to like unionize the players to help fix this issue, and I'm glad that you're like putting voice to it, because I have actually dealt with a lot of it.
Well, listen, man, everything that Porter said brought us here, ladies and gentlemen, to the flank. And we appreciate that. And you know, we're lucky enough to have a platform where people could come on and talk. And I think at the end of the day, it'd be cool to just get people to come together and find a solution rather than just like disagree and just go at each other and nothing gets solved. So I appreciate both of you guys coming on. I really do. Thank you to Alex. Thank you to C6, aka Crimsix, for coming on. Look forward to both to see what both of you guys do in this upcoming season. I think it's going to be a lot of hype around this next season, bro. I'm so fucking excited. This has got to be the most exciting season of the franchise league so far, at least in my opinion. Just looking at some of the rumor teams.
I think so. I think across the league,
I think it's gonna be exciting.
GMs and front offices did a much better job of building their teams. I think there's a lot of parity this year. Do I still think, and Tom, I think eventually you and I will do a show once all the rosters out there where we rank everybody, do kind of probably a little bit of a tier list. I still think there are probably a couple of teams that are better than others, but like again, I feel like in the middle of the pack of these teams, we have no idea how it's going to shuffle out. I think there's a lot of rosters that are going to overperform, and there'll be a couple of rosters that underperform, and that's the excitement I think we'll get this year.
Yeah, I mean, you never know if a top team is going to just shit the bed, and then a bottom team just goes off.
Ben is 100% getting laid tonight, dude.
Oh my god! Dude, I wish I was there to do the deed, dude.
Yeah, where were you
Jesus
at,
Christ. You guys are fucking nuts.
Ben, you do look good, dude. What are you wearing on your feet tonight, dude?
I don't know.
He's got a FaZe Band shirt on right now, though. Are you gonna be repping FaZe Band? Is it FaZe Band coming out?
No, Ben's at the point where like Ben even looks like he smells good right now. You know?
Yeah,
he does, man. Look at that skin, flawless.
Dude, if I had a girl, right? Let's say I had a girl and I walked into the club and I saw Ben getting bottle service on top of a table. I'm getting the Uber. We're fucking going somewhere else, dude.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? He's a liability.
Well, listen, before we get into what CDL Intel's saying, Alex, are you going to be sticking around? You dipping? What are you guys doing, man? You guys out of here?
I will say before...
I'm dipping. I got to learn who Brimstone is.
Tommy, if you want to talk about anything with me, it's got to happen right now because I need to head out shortly.
That's exactly what's going on. Alex, you're welcome to stay. It's up to you, man. If not...
I'll stay. Yeah.
You're staying phenomenal. Let's move on over to the next topic.
Welcome, baby. I'm liking this, dude.
Welcome, Alex.
I'm coming for your guest of the year.
I like... shit.
You sick prick.
Listen, man, CDL Intel tweeted out a few things. Washington and Paris
disconnected from
haven't signed anyone as far as I'm aware. Paris, not really a shock. Washington are considering Methodz, Vivid, maybe Paul X, and others. Hixie is likely going to Ultra as a substitute. I have that guy blocked. He was in the chat before. Don't know why I have him blocked. We'll get to the bottom of that. And then we got Derail has a coaching spot, potentially the subliners. Tony, you're involved in some drama here. Tony, what are your initial thoughts?
I am a signed substitute to Toronto Ultra currently as we speak, and I mean to not even troll. That's actually just the reality of it. I mean, like everything you see is hearsay and rumors, and I can tell you right now, I am nowhere near a deal with another team. So I mean, that's pretty much all I can say.
Well, Ben, what do you think about the Methodz, Vivid, Paul X, and a fourth? What do you think about that roster? Because I like it.
I like that roster. I mean, definitely it's a fourth player, so I'm curious who the plus others are. Is that...
You want me to tell you?
Yeah, if you want to spill some intel on here. You said that you're currently a Toronto Ultra substitute.
I'm just baiting hard.
Yeah, you are. You're baiting hard. But I think a lot of players can fill that spot. You're probably looking at a sub player because I think Vivid is going to be a sub. He's going to look for somebody else unless Paul X is willing to do that.
Well, Tom, we could talk. I mean,
you're hot.
There's an image. And I know you were streaming the throwback. You know, the old Western team was playing together. I think was Reese playing in Zap?
Reese was playing. Yeah, Reese was.
Ben, before you continue, who'd they lose to?
I did not watch the tournament, so you let us know.
Okay.
They lost to us, Ben. They lost to us. We smoked them. Hey, Ben, I want you to know that I am a retired player.
I have a clip on Twitter you can go watch.
I am a retired player, Ben, and was smoking these guys until we got to fucking scumping them, and I dropped 13 in a hard point. But, you know, other than that, we were smoking everybody. Wasn't that right, Tony?
Yeah, gross.
Nah, it was unbelievable stuff. But I think if I'm looking at that fourth spot, you got TJ, Nato. I mean, TJ and Nato are like the two that come to mind, at least for me, like off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But I think definitely finding some aggression. Because I feel like Vivid is more of like a route taker, long pinches, gap filler type shit. I want a head smasher now. Now I think it'd be good to put a head smasher in here and try and bounce at the team a little bit. if that's where they end up going with the team. I have no idea if this is even a true rumor.
Yeah, well, the plus others can be a lot of different players.
Yeah.
We don't know what Washington's front office looks like. Again, if they are acquiring the spot, that's the current rumor. I guess, well, this one might take a while to unpack, so we'll see kind of how it plays out. I think, like, if you and I were out here giving advice to the Washington team based on the mistakes I think a lot of teams have made, it's, you know, think about signing a team that's going to give you blocks for the future, provide leadership, and allow you, look, you may come in the first year in the league, other teams have been together for a minute, so it might be hard to kind of crack that top 6, but think about what your 1-year plan, your 2-year plan, maybe your 3-year plan is, to take some of those pieces, evaluate maybe your other options, and continue to upgrade so you can, you know, eventually walk away with a chip.
And then
actually,
go ahead, Alex, go ahead.
Oh, I'd agree with that completely, right? I think if you're coming in late, there's like very little upside to like paying some of these big players who, if you're not exactly sure how they're all going to fit together, it might just be worth it to invest in people that you think could be potential building blocks for year 2.
Why fuck? If anything, you're a good potential player to build around.
I'm just trolling.
I thought you were on the mid anyway, right? That's what Crim said, so that doesn't really feel fair. No, it's no. So I think like
good.
It depends on when they come in and when they should like how much time they have. But I would assume that like Washington, if you look at their track record, and from what I know in our dealings in Overwatch, they're a team that wants to win, right? And they're a team that builds over the course of multiple years, right? So in Overwatch, it's a little easier because you can pick up some power players and lock them in on 3-year or like 2+1s, so you can get a little more building potential. Like they're a team that's going to come in, try to pick up maybe 1 or 2 pieces, or just go full like, hey, these are 4 people that could then be big pieces in year 2. So I think you're like spot on with your assessment.
Tommy, I got a question for you.
What's up, man?
So you know how like Alex was mentioning that like with year 1 of CDL, like they came in, like LAG came in hella late with all the negotiations, and like Alex came in individually late. Like if you were Washington, like right now, who would you, like what would be your order of pickups that you would do? You were like a part of Washington.
I mean, to be honest, like the rumor that's up on the screen right now doesn't sound too bad. It sounds pretty good. I mean, I'm definitely looking. I think the main part right now is Vivid. I think that's like the big question mark. I think everybody's like, where's Vivid going? Where the hell is Vivid going? Everybody was like, why is this guy not on the team?
There's only 2 spots left, so he's got to go with 1 or 2. Right?
I mean, look.
Well, now there is. I mean, at first when we didn't know what any other team was doing, people thought Vivid could have been going there. And then once you start hearing rumors and kind of hearing speculated rosters and realize.
I'm saying today, if you're Washington today, what are you doing?
If you're Washington today, I'm signing fucking Reese Vivid immediately.
Okay, love that.
I'm signing Reese Vivid immediately, and I'm sitting him down and seeing where he wants to go with the team. And then I think you just go for that. You need a player to build around, like what Alex said. You need to start with somebody who you can just build around and just kind of be like that stepping stone and go from there. Because you want players to play with people they want to play with too. You want everybody to feel comfortable. So it's important that you talk to the players.
I'll say, Tom, and then Alex, you can go, is like Reese, but you know, if you have that keys conversation, it's hard to walk that back if you have problems with Reese. So maybe you don't go full in on that, but I agree with you. Like, I think you've got to learn from the pitfalls of other teams that have kind of leaned too much into heavy 4 veterans, and let's see if it works, and figure out like what pieces can you build around. If Reese is your target guy, at least for this year, what pieces can you work around that will fit his play style? Bring another plus.
You guys are forgetting. You need to pick. You need to get a good GM and coach. That's your first order.
You
need to get.
I was going for that.
Players come after. I mean, bro. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, it should be me. I mean, bro, they can pick who they want. What I'm saying is, the first order of business is a good GM and a good coach.
That was where my question was directed to.
I was gonna actually go towards there because I see the last thing here is right. D-Real has a coaching spot to subliners, and you see teams now doing that where they have multiple coaches now on the sideline. Like for me, Looney, I was talking about on the last show. How the fuck is Looney going to a team that already has a good coach? You would think he would just be a head coach somewhere and be a superstar somewhere. For some of these teams that don't have anything, you know? Were you going to say something, Alex? Sound like you were about to say something.
Like, yeah, people have different roles, right? Like, and I think different areas of expertise. One thing that like we're doing this year is we're keeping the 2 coaches, but they have like very distinct areas they're supposed to focus on, right? Because I think you have people like Embry, whose S&D knowledge is like fucking insane, right?
Yeah,
so that might be Looney going to a team and being able to put like level that team up. And ultimately too, like these coaches are people who like, there's so many in challengers who work specifically with individual players And that can also be a really powerful thing if you're trying to build out a franchise, is picking up a coach-player duo who work well together and can learn and can grow.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to pick up a bunch of young guys, because like, unfortunately, you fry people in challengers and then you come to the pro league where you can't make team changes when things don't work out. You actually have to like work through it. A coach can be really impactful in that situation.
Can I ask a question on that?
A vocal coach
Tom?
is
Guys,
important.
I'm just gonna say I'm gonna head out.
Later, Tony.
Thanks for having me on.
It's always a pleasure.
I think it's been a good show so far, and hope
It's
you
been
guys
great,
are enjoying
Tony.
it. So I'll catch you guys later, man.
Have a good one, Tony.
Ben,
it's always a
before you
pleasure.
ask your question,
See you
I was
guys.
that's where my question was more directed to, was like, obviously, like, even I completely agree with Tom. If you're starting day one with Washington and you're trying to get players, number one is Vivid, without a doubt. But I was talking about more so with a GM and a coach, like, where do you start? Because like, on top of them being super late, every other coach is pretty much picked up. So it's like, how do you find the right fit? And those pieces are super important in terms of like the goal of the team. Like when you hire a GM, most likely that guy is directing the org, no? So like, how is it so difficult to find like that right GM for,
I
like,
mean,
Washington?
it is difficult to find it, because you have to find somebody who's knowledgeable and knows what the fuck's going on. Because if you bring in somebody who doesn't know what's going on, it's gonna flop, and it's gonna flop fast.
It's the hardest position to hire for. And theoretically, okay, I'm also going to add the caveat that I am having this discussion based on this tweet, not any knowledge that I have. So we're just sort of operating under the assumption that this is true. But like, that's a position that theoretically is not tied to an official league contract. So if you are making those plays and maybe the paperwork's getting done, or, you know, you're figuring it out, like, you should get that person now and try to build them out, because they're the hardest people to find. And I think that a lot of times you have people who have maybe still too much of a player mindset versus what makes a successful team. Just like people called us Friendship Club Friendship League last year, like, that stuff can truly be detrimental if you don't have the people in place to stop that.
Can I ask you a tangential question, Alex?
Yeah.
So, what are kind of your thoughts on analytics? I know that you guys have Doug, and I remember meeting Doug in Venue, and now this guy's cutting commercials for IBM. Is that like a big cornerstone of how you guys kind of approach your coaching staffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to give your coaches the right pieces to succeed, right? Like, too many of them are just like, hey, you're good at Call of Duty, like, figure it out. The stuff that Doug has built for us, which obviously, like, we don't go out there and show to people because it's a competitive advantage, is like really, really helpful. Like, we can literally sit there and practice S&D and see that like only 1% of time people even look at a corner, right? So like, if you're going to set up like plans and plays, which is something that we did a lot with Embry in season 1, that information is super helpful. It's also helpful because when you have situations like the Reese situation where people are like talking about engagements and his engagement's so high and everyone else is low, like, you can kind of see what's true and what's not and use that to make decisions. Ultimately, as you, I guess, see, is that it doesn't truly come down to numbers, but I think you use that to help inform these other decisions versus make blind guesses.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I would add, Asim, is because you're like, where do you go? What do you do? You know, it's too late, this and that. Well, I saw Nameless put in the chat. Shout out to Nameless, by the way, talking about Ace. Ace would be a great person to bring in as a general manager, as a coach. You know, even if you got to drop a little bit of a bag to get him, I would do it. You know, just because you know what you're going to get out of him. And you know that you have somebody who's knowledgeable and has been around for so long that just knows exactly where to start. You have people like Atora, right, from Florida, who's no longer over there. You don't know what he's going to be doing. You have people like Nubsy from Seattle. So there's definitely people out there, Asim, who you could pick up. You got to be smart about what you do. But I do think getting a superstar player and a coach and pairing them up, like kind of what Alex said, just, you know, reiterating what he said, would be the most important thing.
That's for
sure.
That's definitely top priority.
I want to kind of move to the other part of that tweet. So I had seen Hicksy's name before, but I don't know much about him as a player. Do you guys kind of know?
I've never heard of him.
I don't know anything about Hicksy. I had him blocked on Twitter.
Usually I'm really
Do you know why?
No, I have no idea why. I have no idea why. He might have just like said some stupid shit to me when I lost a tournament or something. I probably blocked him, or so, you know, just me being emotional. Yeah, it could have been like 6 years ago. What are you gonna do? You know, it is what it is. I'm gonna unblock him now. So I don't know. You know, we were younger maybe when it happened, so we said a lot of stupid shit. I have no idea.
This could be another case of, you know, Toronto team that does a lot of scouting in EU. They obviously picked up Insight and that worked out for them. So it's probably maybe the same thing. They see a lot of success. Maybe with Hicksy, I kind of looked it up, but he was on that Elevate team of Denza, Weeman, and Derail as their coach. And and it looks like they had a decent amount of success in Europe this year in Challengers Cup.
And I have a question about D-Real too. Does he speak French by any chance? Is this guy what kind of language does this guy speak?
From what I know from last year, I think when Hydra was in France, D-Real was helping him, but I don't know much about how much he helped Hydra. I know he's helped him. I know he helped him a lot last year.
Interesting. I mean, people are saying he's English. He doesn't speak French. I really don't know.
I'm pretty sure he's from the UK, but I think he was helping Hydra. If I wasn't wrong.
Okay, that's interesting because maybe he's coming in to help Paco. Because Paco, obviously he's a really, really talented player. I think really highly of the kid. I think the only boundary that he's trying to cross right now is the language boundary, and maybe D-Real might be able to come in and help with that. Or maybe he just has a connection. Even if he doesn't speak French, maybe he just has a connection with Paco and they get along and he understands them. You never know what it is. But I do like the moves, if it is true, if all this stuff is true. But I think we can end it there, Ben. I thought we had a good show. I think we talked about everything.
This is a great show. Obviously, Ace, appreciate you kind of hopping on at the end. And Alex, thanks for hopping on here.
Yeah, appreciate you guys, man. And before we do go anywhere, shout out to HelloFresh for today's stream. Look at Queen Mitch. She cooked me up some chicken, a nice salad, and some garlic bread as well. So shout out to HelloFresh.
Phenomenal.
I already ate half the chicken, so you can see the middle of the plate empty right there because I was munching on it as the show was going on. But shout out to HelloFresh. Make sure to put command HelloFresh in the chat. Use code Zoomaa14 if you haven't already for 14 free meals. First box of meal will be free shipping as well. So make sure to use that code Zoomaa14. Shout out to Alex, man. Alex, I fucking love having you on, man. Really, this was an amazing episode. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on.
Alex is the GOAT, man.
Wait, you're the fucking GOAT, man. We love the Los Angeles Gorillas over here at the Flank, man. We were checking out the content pieces yesterday as well.
Up, baby?
Yeah, man, the content was good.
Tom and I will accept any regular season tickets or indoor player tickets to Rams games.
We would love that. I'm in Los Angeles now, man. So if you guys ever want to do anything, I'm right away. How you doing? But I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you for coming on. Guys, make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Go to anchor.fm/theflank to check out all the audio sites we're on. Go follow The Flank on Twitter at The Flank. Gersh doing a phenomenal job. We recently just hit over 30,000 followers on The Flank Twitter, which is incredible. So thank you guys so much. Make sure to follow the stream. Make sure to put command HelloFresh in the chat. Shout out to HelloFresh. And as always, guys, it was an absolute pleasure. And we'll see you guys in the next one, which will probably be with Slasher on another episode of The Flank. As always, have a good fucking day.
Have a good day.
Forget about it.